Welcome back to Big Red Rant, everyone. The Huskers almost get a win against a good opponent with a really good passing game, but they shot themselves in the foot a lot. It was nice, Gary, to see a game that was a little bit more high scoring after that 14-13 showdown with Rutgers. Our kicker had a great game, and we're lucky that he did. It really helped keep things close. And I just wanted to point him out because we haven't always been able to count on our kicking game. What were your overall thoughts of the game?
Kind of mixed, man, with the fact that we were able to be close. You know, I think they were just as afraid of us getting the ball back at the end of the game as we were hoping we'd get the ball back because of what we found with the Palmer connection. They clearly had no one that could keep up with them, but also super disappointed in the defense. And like, I'm pretty much rock bottom with what my level of disappointment can be with the offensive line. Like, they're trying to make changes with what they have there and do different things. And it's just, it's a lost cause. There's no way around it. We're going into way tougher defenses. I think they were like 17th or something against the run. Teams have been stacking up to prepare for Grant, and I think that's also a part of what hurt them. Everybody knows they can get to Casey. Everybody knew that for the first quarter of the season, Grant was the weapon. As he went, the offense went, and we've seen that the last few weeks actually, of really teams stacking the box and trying to game plan to stop Grant. And when you combine that with the fact they don't have any top end speed that allows for Palmer to do what he does, the downside to Palmer doing what he does, ironically, is it's huge for your offense. It's almost like a cheat code on Madden type deal. But you turn around and put your defense that cannot stop the run, and the only way you feel that you have a shot in hell against the short game pass and having guys in space for the run is to go man on the edges, and you still can't stop them. So you're getting just eaten alive. There was one drive where they only ran the ball, and it was Maccabee the whole time. I think it was like 7 carries, something like that. I mean, we talk about what Wisconsin does to us with running backs, and Minnesota's had those games, and so has Iowa. By himself, he had 178 yards on 30 carries. The dude averaged 5.9 yards a carry. There's definitely some good things to take away from it, but there's more than enough things that need to be fixed, but things that can't be fixed. It comes down to it. You just don't have the guys at certain spots to fix things. And then you add on top of that your best defensive player, which is Reimer. People can say whatever they want about some of the other guys they talk about. He's the guy that tackles. He was gone from the gate. Your next best linebacker, who is also pretty good at tackling, he got off to a rough start. He was still hurt and battling with injuries. But when Henrich went out, it was I thought it would. I'm shocked we didn't get beat more once that happened. But there's definitely mixed emotions from fans of, you can see that Mickey's still doing his thing, and we're hanging in a game that we shouldn't have been in or wouldn't have been in under the previous regime. And then people that are more kind of where I'm at with the disappointment of, and I don't know, man. I'm not just disappointed in the coaching and in the fact they won't get better. I guess I'm more disappointed that, oh shit, this is what we have. You know what I mean? Like, you can want things to get better and you can work and do everything you can to make it better. But I really think that overall the defense and the offensive line, for sure, you've seen the best of what you're going to get. You can't possibly get much more out of a lot of those guys. And that's sad, that sucks, and that's scary going into the teams we're about to get into for the back half of the schedule. I mean, what's your thoughts, man? Where were you at after the game?
I'm on the side that says Mickey's doing a good job, and I saw growth.
Yeah.
Like, I was fine with it. I expected a loss, considering it was such a close loss, and we shot ourselves in the foot. We could have won that game. So I didn't think that at the end of the game I would be thinking, well, we could have won it. It was just mistakes. I mean, the 2 interceptions, it's not all about those interceptions, but they were kind of ugly interceptions. They weren't special circumstances where you say, oh, well, that wasn't really his fault. No, they were his fault.
Yeah. Like
they were gross. So those 2 things alone, there were other things. I felt happy knowing that we kept it so close and had a shot to win it all the way.
Yeah, but like, what are we talking about when we say superior? I think that's where a lot of people are upset with losing the way we did to that team. I think they accept that if it's, Michigan and potentially Illinois, who would have thought at the beginning of the year Illinois would be top 25 when we come to play them. A lot of people expect them bottom of the Big Ten. But I mean, Purdue lost to Syracuse. They lost a close one to Penn State early. Penn State got manhandled this past weekend. It's tough to base how good a team is when you play them based off how they played someone else. Like, I think we all know that at this point. But the perception of Purdue is we're people are back and forth on where they stand with what this loss represents. You know what I mean? Like, I think some people think, oh, Purdue's a really good team, and some people think, and they're okay. But I thought we were okay now. You know, I thought we were a mediocre team. I thought we went from bottom of the barrel team to maybe the low end of average or middle of the road type team. And that's what Purdue, you know, so I guess it just depends on your perception. But I don't know, man. You got the missed touchdown pass to Alante Brown in the end zone, wide open. There was a missed one to another one that Palmer arguably could have had, or at least kept things moving. They just can't keep drives alive because the run game is suffocated. The offensive line, like Mickey said, it is better at run blocking, but what does that mean? You know what I mean? It's not good. So to me, that game, the biggest problem that game, obviously the offensive line, but the defense, I feel like regressed back to what it was against Georgia Southern and Oklahoma.
You foresaw that our soft defense on the line of scrimmage against the pass was going to be a problem.
Yeah, and you know, they don't have like Charlie Jones, he's not going to set any records at a combine running the 40 time, but he breaks off his routes so crisp and quick that you saw no one could stay with him in man. And half the time, even when he was in a zone, between the accuracy in which he was throwing and then the way Jones would find those little gaps in the zone, there's just nothing they could do about it. And I'm not trying to go on a rant, but the idea that we got these pass rushers now, and they're edge rushers, they're not defensive ends anymore, and they're not outside linebackers. Like, I'm done hearing about it. We're not getting, to hell with sacks, right? We're not getting pressure on quarterbacks. And I think Bush knows that, which is why you saw a lot of 3-man fronts and dropping 8 guys back. But then, like I said, they revert back to what they were doing at the beginning of the season, and you got 5 guys missing tackles. Like, what's the point of dropping 8 guys back if they're going to dump the ball off a yard or 2 in front of the line of scrimmage, and then he's going to take it for 30, 40 yards because people aren't wrapping up and can't make tackles? So it's everything after all these games keeps coming back to the majority of people want Mickey to stay, and they want to use each game as an example why he needs to stay. I'm one of those people. I think you're one of those people. But I feel like the lack of talent everywhere, especially at critical positions, might be the reason he doesn't get to keep his job. I mean, after the way that game went and looking at who we have coming up, there's a real legit shot of us not winning another game. And I think it's going to be really hard for them to justify keeping him if that's the case. You know what I mean? There's going to have to be something there that continues. You can't come out and play Indiana and Rutgers, who it looks like now are probably going to be the 2 worst Big Ten teams, at least, that we play throughout the season. Have to come from behind in both of those, you know, beat Indiana a little better than Rutgers, but squeak out a win against Rutgers, and that's what you're hanging your hat on. I don't think it's his fault. I think the cupboards are super bare for what he has to work with, and I would argue as good of a recruiter and developer as he is, you give him some time to bring guys in, especially at critical positions, especially being able to utilize the transfer portal, things could take some drastic jumps. But I don't know, I don't get to make the decision, you know what I mean? I don't know what people need to see, or if there's some sexy name that's going to draw, you know, Trev Alberts and all the powers that be's attention away from him. I almost feel like he has to make it impossible for them to let him go. And I don't know that he has the horses in the stable to do that.
Specifically, the horses we're talking about here are offense and defensive line. I think we both agree that we have plenty of skill players that are good enough to get the job done really in any conference. I love our skill players.
What about the skill players on defense?
They're not as much, but offense, we're gold. But we need an offensive line. That has to be what we use the NIL glitch that we have for. Our NIL advantage has to be pushed towards the line and basically nothing else. I mean, we're not going to shoo away talent at skill positions, but damn it, they got to focus on the line. Let's take a look at some of these plays because this was a beautiful game to watch. It was fun. It would have been a lot more fun if we won, but it was fun to watch. So, Gary, I didn't want to get my hopes up with this Hartzog kid. I was honestly telling myself that it was more luck than anything, that he just is in the right place at the right time. The first couple of times it happened. But now I'm starting to think that this kid just knows how to play the ball and is more focused on the ball than some of the other guys that don't get their heads around.
Yeah, I like seeing that they're putting a little faith in some of these younger guys, especially in the skill position, because a lot of that skill position, you need time, you need reps. You know what I mean? You can be really good, but none of that translates until you get a comfort level established for the speed and the pace of the game. And I feel like he's gradually coming along, and you're right. But one thing to keep in mind with a lot of these guys, when people, I'm big on not just staring at the receiver the entire time and at least peeking a little bit to try and make a play on the ball, but you can only do that when you've got control of your guy. And whoever, most of the time is Newsom, but whoever's on Charlie Jones, that's not going to happen very often because, like I said, he breaks off his routes so quick. But the other thing that makes it easy, you see on this play, you can't see it because it's out of the picture, but Hartzog has safety help. So he doesn't have to be locked on his guy. He can peek back if he loses him a little bit. He's got help over the top, and that allows him to pick up on the ball way sooner than he would have if he was out there on an island, and be able to just basically leave his guy and go where he knows the ball's going. I mean, his guy hasn't even turned back to look for the ball yet, and he's already breaking on it. So it's, those things give you a huge advantage, but the problem is you can't always have safety help, especially when you're getting gouged for almost 300 yards on the ground. So, or they're going, 3, 4, sometimes 5 receivers coming out. So yeah, that's a great play, and I wish guys did it more. I also wish we had the talent at the corner spots specifically to where they could make up gaps if they're looking and need to catch up to a guy, or had the hip movement and the feet to be able to go alongside a guy step for step and peek into the backfield and make plays and break on the ball. But again, a good example of a young guy who I think has some promise, but also the benefit that you get from having safety help over the top. I want to look at a couple of the deep balls to Palmer. I've talked to you a little bit about it, and one of the things about Casey that I wish, along with taking off out of the pocket, that he would do is when he's throwing to these guys, I almost wish he had the mindset of like maybe trying to overthrow them. I feel like there's a lot of slowing down or coming back to the ball, or a guy having to stop, and then as soon as he catches it, we'll see that a little bit later on one of the next plays where Palmer has to stop and catch it to get the ball, and then he gets crushed by 2 defensive players. But this play's a good example. He has to take maybe a little bit of a stutter step, but once he clears by that safety, the corner, he throws it out there. He's got to slow down just a little, but it's out in front. It's nice. He doesn't have to come back to it. Doesn't have to slow way down. He's not getting hit as soon as he touches it. And we'll look at a couple plays where it's not so easy or so smooth, but this one also is probably the most separation that Palmer had. Once he made his move, he was gone. Here's an example of the opposite, kind of what I'm talking about. By the time he hits Palmer, or gets the ball loose, he's got to stop and almost hop back. It's like it's a little short, and he's going to outrun the ball, so he has to stop back, and he gets hit. He's got both of those guys pretty well beat. If it gets his ball 3-4 yards in front of where he's going, he doesn't break stride. He houses it. There's some, we drove down and scored anyways. It's kind of nitpicking here, but as we go on in the season against some of these teams, especially now knowing that they're going to have to watch him, you're going to start seeing safeties over the top to help with him. When he gets those seams or those little openings, it's going to have to be there. It's not going to be as easy as it was against these guys. One, between their lack of speed, and two, they didn't come into this game obviously too worried about having safety help over the top, and he's going to see that for sure the rest of the way out throughout the season now. This plays a kind of an example what I was alluding to when you and I were talking about skill players, and I was like, what about our defensive skill players? Because things like this happen more often than not, and between your linebackers, corners, safeties, whatever, getting in position is one thing. Basic wrapping up and tackling, we thought that was kind of gradually being put in the rear view. This is a perfect example of how it either isn't, or when things were getting tight, maybe they verted back to what they trained and practiced on all throughout the past season, through the off season. I don't know, but we started seeing this a lot with just a 3-man front and letting 8 guys drop back. They were killing us with the pass and the run. So, I mean, you should be able to stop the pass fairly, leaning things in your favor here against the pass. You're going to be susceptible to some short stuff, especially short runs, but theoretically, you're not giving up anything too big. And that would happen if you had guys, there's plenty of opportunities to stop it from being a big gain. There's only 3 guys coming in, corner misses, D tackle misses, nickel slows them down enough everybody can catch up and get in there and try to make the plays. But I mean, open field, you got a guy that's literally running into an 8-man coverage at basically from the line of scrimmage, and no one can get him down, and you turn what should be a no gain or a 1-yard loss or a 1-yard gain, they're slicing that up. So it's like, I don't know
from a defensive coordinator's perspective, what do you do? You know, I mean, we talked about the pass rush never gets home. The defensive line rarely seals off to where there's no clean gaps to run through. So this is what you would do to try and counter that. And then this is the result you get. I don't know what more they can do. They talked about they've worked on, the players talk about, everybody talks about they drill tackling now, they're wrapping up, they're trying to drive it home, and it's still just, Mockabee's a good running back, don't get me wrong. It's not like you or me are out here running through him, but it's, I don't know. I honestly wish I had some idea of like what they could do or what they should scheme different or something, but this is schemed pretty well, man. It should have been a no gain. And this is, like I said, it's one example. I'm going to sit here and show 15 plays for every example, but it's just, we've seen it throughout the year. Unfortunately, it's not gone like we were hoping. And that's what I'm saying. I don't know what you expect a guy to do to fix things like this. You know, from a coaching perspective, I feel like they did the right things scheme wise to try and fix the issues they were having, and then now you got guys going back to not tackling. So just an example of what I'm saying, where I think you're going to need some guys more than you're going to need to look at other coaches.
Well, man, all I can say is that Palmer is absolutely ridiculous, and I'm starting to feel like Grant and Palmer is like the best 1-2 skill player punch that I can remember in a long time. Do you disagree? Can you think of anyone off the top of your head? Is that recency bias?
I don't know. I mean, Palmer wasn't impressing me at the beginning of the season. He's just kind of came alive, but I think talent-wise, they probably are. These guys are probably better, but the problem is they can't.
There's really prove it.
Yeah, I mean, what you need to set up for those guys to succeed just isn't there, man, and it's not coming. You know, it's just not. It's not going to happen. There has to be. I don't care who you bring in as a coach, unless you get guys that are looking into or already at head coaching level, but came up as like elite position coaches. If you get a bunch of those guys to come in, then maybe you can, you know, polish up some of these guys in some of these positions a little bit better. But any of the one coaching candidates that people are talking about that's out there isn't coming in with what's here now and turning things around mid-season at least. You know, maybe in off-season you could do some stuff, but I'm not even mad at Raiola. Like, I don't know what he's supposed to do. You know, I mean,
that's where we part ways. I'm done with him.
Yeah. Well, you were bitter when he got here because he came from Chicago. So.
And I already knew it's like, oh, you're going to fix our line? Okay. All right. So we've got another bye week, and then we've got Illinois. We'll be doing a lot of work to get ready for that. We'll try to have a nice comprehensive film breakdown for how they've gone about becoming ranked and what we're going to see from them. Can't wait to see you guys next time. Until then, go Big Red.